opens with a night view of a beautiful city in the USA, where a man named James is waiting for someone in his car. Soon, he realizes that he's being followed and heads to a parking lot searching for someone, only to get stunned by gunshots. The scene then shifts to a day earlier, showing an inmate, Frankie, leaving prison after serving a 10-year sentence. Outside, Frankie's friends pick him up, taking him to their boss, Ray, who is displeased with Frankie's situation and inquires about his brother. We're then shown James, who is working as a mechanic in an automobile repair shop. At his workplace, James, Frankie's brother, encounters a familiar face, Emily, a dispatcher from the police department. He then approaches her to have a conversation and gets to know that she's there to get her car fixed. Here, we can see that the two have a different connection and seem to know each other very well. As they reminisce about old memories, James suggests fixing Emily's car at her home to save money because the service fee at the garage is very high. To his good luck, Emily agrees to it. Later that evening, James returns home only to hear some noise coming from the backyard. He then goes to check it and is shocked to find Frankie there. The latter is upset with his brother because, despite being released after a decade, James didn't come to receive him outside the prison. Enraged, James scolds and beats Frankie, stating that he's the one who got him into trouble and ruined his life. But eventually he forgives his brother, and the bond between the brothers prevails. The next day, James goes to Emily's house to fix her car, hoping to impress her and rekindle a past romance. Following this, James begins working on Emily's car, but deliberately takes his time as he wants to spend more time with her. He informs Emily that her car has numerous issues and will require a few more days to fix. Emily, understanding James' intentions, decides to give him the time. The next day, James, dressed up, heads to a bank with hopes of securing a loan to fulfill his dream of opening an auto repair shop. Unfortunately, the bank representative delivers disappointing news, stating that they no longer offer small business loans. Disheartened, James shares this setback with Frankie and joins him at a bar for drinks. At the bar, Frankie apologizes to James for involving him in a crime in the past that led him to a 16-month sentence. During this time, he also recounts the challenges of his 10-year jail term and assures that now he has completely changed himself. Frankie expresses gratitude to two fellow inmates who helped him survive in the torturous prison and mentions that he owes them a great favor. Frankie then proposes a significant venture involving James, emphasizing that they need him for it. On the other hand, James, determined to lead a simple and honest life, rejects Frankie's proposal and urges him to stay out of trouble. In his defense, Frankie insists that he has changed and outlines plans for a legitimate real estate business with investors ready to invest. He then mentions his business partners and takes James outside to meet them. Outside the bar, Frankie introduces James to Ray and Sugar, who request a ride from James to discuss future plans. While driving, Frankie talks about his brother's skills with cars and his passion for repairing them. Soon, the conversation takes a turn when Ray, Sugar, and Frankie ask James to stop the car. They exit, asking him to wait outside as they meet with investors. Uneasy, James expresses his concerns to Frankie, who reassures him that everything is all right and suggests he follow the instructions. Despite the reassurance, when the group does not return for a long time, James leaves the car to check the building. He walks through the parking lot and at that moment, he hears gunshots, taking him by surprise. It is the same scene from the opening of the movie. Right then, Frankie and the gang notice James, questioning why he left the car. They insist that James get back into the car, and they hastily leave the scene. Unfortunately, a police patrol car pursues them, initiating a chase. During the intense drive, James skillfully evades the police, saving the group from getting caught. However, he's now furious as they have entangled him in a crime without his consent. After everything is sorted out, Ray, indifferent to James's attachment to his car, insists that it must be destroyed as the police might have identified it. Sad, James returns home and, unwilling to see his car destroyed, decides to leave the city and begins packing. Right then, Frankie arrives and tries to make James understand that he was unaware of the murder. Hearing this, James expresses his disappointment, stating that within 2 days of Frankie's release, he is involved in murder, and he doesn't want a brother like that. Adding to the brothers' dismay, Ray and Sugar arrive, forcefully preventing James from leaving and taking his car keys. Ray, aware of James' financial needs, offers him a chance to earn money by assisting them in a criminal act. James flatly refuses, leading Ray to threaten Frankie's life if he doesn't comply. Here, our boy realizes that his brother has pushed him into hell and cannot get out of it willingly. The next day, Frankie takes James to the gang's base, where the latter learns that the gang members are dangerous criminals capable of killing anyone without hesitation. Ray shows them a city map and outlines the plan to rob a bank. He also narrates the role of James, stealing 4 vehicles to create distractions in different parts of the city. The goal is to carry out the bank heist within a tight 5-minute time frame, exploiting the diversion caused by the chaos. After knowing all the details, James states that he no longer wants to continue working with the group. However, when he's leaving, Frankie stops him and insists that he cannot abandon the mission. He emphasizes the danger posed by the gang, asserting that they could not only harm them, but also pose a threat to Emily. James is shocked to hear Emily's name and questions how the gang learned about her. Frankie admits that in a drunken state, he disclosed details about his and Emily's relationship to the group. James gets furious, realizing that his brother has not only jeopardized his life, but also the life of the girl he loves. Overwhelmed with guilt, Frankie tries to defend himself, revealing his traumatic experience during the 10 years of his sentence. He mentions that he endured physical abuse and assault, and even thought of committing suicide to avoid the torture. Ray and Sugar were the ones who saved his life, leading Frankie to feel indebted to them. He also acknowledges the likelihood of being killed by the gang after the robbery, but pleads for James's help, hoping that his brother can save him. However, James just walks away from there with tears in his eyes. In the next scene, we see James working on Emily's car, asking her to pass on the toolbox. During this interaction, their relationship deepens and a strong romance blossoms between them. They enjoy each other's company, leading James to take Emily on a date in a borrowed car the following morning. Unaware that Sugar is following them, James drops Emily off at her workplace, the police station. While James and Frankie are spending time together, the latter gifts his brother a stolen car. Though the younger one does not like the color of the car, he hops into it for a ride. Sadly, their peaceful moment is interrupted when Ray and Sugar summon them to a graveyard. There, Frankie endures a severe beating as the criminal duo expresses anger at him. They accuse him of not revealing that Emily is a police dispatcher. Frankie tries to defend himself, stating that he had no idea about it. But despite Frankie's protests, Ray and Sugar remain suspicious, warning the brothers to keep an eye on Emily. Returning home, James and Frankie reminisce about their past, unveiling a troubled truth. They were imprisoned a decade ago for killing a cop. Frankie, claiming he did it all for the family, admits to sabotaging Emily's car with Sugar. He orchestrated events to bring James and Emily closer, ensuring that someone would be there to care for his brother in his absence. He also reveals that he had no idea that Ray and Sugar could use it against them for their benefit. James, aware that Frankie is his last relative, forgives his brother and walks away from there. Later, James visits Emily's house and notices her preparing dinner. With a heavy heart, he approaches her and suggests they should end their relationship. He's actually doing all this to protect Emily from the dangerous gang. However, Emily gets furious and accuses James of playing with her feelings, blaming his crazy brother for their troubles. She demands he leave and also urges him to take the car repair fees. Speechless, James leaves her house and stands outside her gate crying. The next day, Emily heads to her police dispatcher job while the gang prepares for the planned bank robbery. According to their plan, a red car explodes on the roadside, prompting Emily to report the incident. Multiple other blasts occur simultaneously, which keeps Emily and the police patrol officers busy. Police dispatchers immediately respond to the explosions and become occupied, allowing the gang to create diversions on the road. Seizing the opportunity, Ray and the gang head to the bank for the ultimate heist. As they reach outside the bank, Frankie and Sugar barge in, holding guns in their hands. The two then force everyone to kneel, turning staff and customers into hostages. As Frankie and another gang member, Spoonie, handle the crowd, Ray and Sugar take the bank manager away and compel him to open the security vault. Initially, the manager declines to have the codes to the vault, but when Ray puts a gun to his head, he complies and opens it. However, Ray tragically shoots and kills him. The gang steals money from the vault, with Ray and Sugar managing the loot while Frankie deals with the tellers. Outside, a lady witnesses James and the masked Frankie signaling something and senses a robbery taking place. She then rushes to report to the police. Frankie also realizes that the girl has seen him and informs Ray and Sugar to do everything fast. Upon receiving the alert about the robbery, Emily promptly dispatches police units to the bank. Simultaneously, James, who is also part of the heist group, hears the dispatching order on his radio. He then exits the van to inform the group, entering the bank and urging everyone to leave quickly. Unfortunately, Sugar and Ray take longer to collect the cash, and by the time they're ready to leave, police officers have already surrounded the bank. To their bad luck, Spoonie betrays them by driving away in the van alone, leaving the rest trapped inside the bank. During the chaos, a police officer is about to shoot James from near the window. Thankfully, Frankie notices him in time and shoots the officer, preventing James from being hit. Following this, the police outside and the robbers engage in a crossfire. Tragically, Frankie gets shot in the process, falling to the floor in panic. To calm the situation, Ray reassures Frankie that they will escape safely, instructing James to exit through a second door and steal another car for their getaway. Having no other option left, James complies and successfully steals a car, bringing it in front of the bank. However, while Ray and Sugar get into the car with the help of a hostage, Frankie is unable to stand and is still inside. When James inquires about his brother, Ray urges him to drive away without him. The former refuses to leave without his brother, stepping out of the car and running back into the bank. In his absence, Ray gets into the driver's seat and drives away with Sugar, pursued by police. On the other hand, Frankie and James contemplate their escape plan, and the former apologizes for the chaos he brought into James's life and worries about the possibility of their deaths. James sees Frankie's severe injuries and, taking an elderly lady hostage, urges the police to stay away from the bank. He then tends to Frankie's wounds, suggesting surrender over death. However, Frankie refuses to comply, expressing a preference for death over returning to the torturous life in prison. Meanwhile, as Ray runs on the road, a police helicopter pursues him. In defense, Ray shoots and kills the pilot, causing the helicopter to crash. Despite this, the police continue their pursuit, ultimately shooting and killing Ray in the middle of the road. Simultaneously, Sugar is also found and killed, leaving only James and Frankie alive. Amidst the chaos, a police sniper takes position at the rooftop of the building opposite the bank. Inside the bank, Frankie apologizes to James for stealing his childhood and ruining his youth. He then suddenly punches hard on his younger brother's face and knocks him out, causing him to bleed from the nose. Frankie compels a hostage to approach him and changes James' clothes, depicting him as a hostage. Here, we learn that Frankie intends to die at the hands of the police, hoping they will mistake James for a hostage and attempt to save him. While James is still knocked out, he's carried outside at gunpoint by Frankie. As the duo reaches outside the bank, Frankie intentionally moves away from James, allowing the sniper to kill him with a headshot. Emily witnesses all this on the TV screen and immediately recognizes James and his brother. Stunned by his brother's death, James is brought to an ambulance for treatment. Unfortunately, when the paramedic opens his clothes for treatment, he notices the bulletproof vest inside and realizes that James is also one of the robbers. Before the officer can inform his colleagues, James attacks him and manages to escape from the police. Later, the paramedic reports the situation to the police station, and Emily confirms registering his concern. However, she does not dispatch any police officers to pursue James and just leaves her office. The movie then ends with James walking away from the chaotic scene unharmed.